It's a slow journey of titration where we recognize the areas of our life that we're possibly bypassing, and we hold those parts of ourselves in the deepest compassion and deepest kindness that we can possibly find, because we are just doing the best we can with the feelings that we have always. And through this journey of unraveling and returning back into deeper connection to our body, and therefore cultivating a more steady, stable, and safe ground within, we are able to ground more into the truth of our existence and the reality of our life. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast with me, Rebecca Wilson. An embodied experiential space for you to drop deep into the wealth of wisdom within your being and activate a fuller, richer you. I am a feminine awakener, thought leader, embodied business doula, sacred business midwife, healer, and all-round medicine woman. I am here to guide women deeper into their essence and power, to activate their life force, awaken pleasure, and support them to live an embodied life. I will help you birth your visions, dreams, creations, desires, and sacred business into the world from an easeful, embodied, and rooted place within. My work supports women to become more available for life, love, relationship, connection, creation, pleasure, and wealth. I will activate you into self-leadership and self-mastery to truly live an embodied and awakened life. Welcome on the journey, my love. Hello, beautiful woman. Welcome to the Embodied Woman podcast. Today's episode arrives from a space of reflection and integration in my own life and my own inner world, and really arriving into some deeper depths of embodied wisdom from the landscape I have been traversing within my own body and being, and within my life and my relationships. And underneath that, the landscape I have been exploring in my own awareness and consciousness. And this is this piece that has arrived for me, which I've kind of landed into this phrase, which I often do. Words play a huge piece in the unfolding of my inner world and my processes. And very often I'll arrive into sentences or phrases that seem to capture the essence of the wisdom that has arrived. This piece, this phrase kind of just dropped in for me a few weeks ago now. And I've just been allowing it to percolate inside because it has felt quite huge. And in its landing with me, it's really taken me on a journey of reflection. And this piece, this awareness that has arrived is this statement, if we will, of an embodied woman is connected to the reality of life. A disembodied woman isn't. So I have been on this journey of healing, awakening, embodiment for some time now. And I really feel and sense that I'm walking this path and therefore teaching and guiding and serving from these pieces of wisdom or the wisdom of the body, because it has been at points in my life the deepest medicine that I have needed. I really feel more and more embodied each and every day as my life continues on. That hasn't always been what has been available for me throughout my life and the experiences I've had in my life, I have not always existed or lived in connection to myself or my body, my feelings or my emotions. The truth is, I have actually lived very disconnected from all of those things, which is why I have this felt sense that I am on this path and therefore able to support and guide women that possibly are feeling those things too, because I have truly been there. If you're new to my world, you may be able to drop into the essence of that in some of my writings and my teachings. And if you've been here for a while, you possibly know some of my story. I have experienced some pretty huge, shocking traumas in my life that have happened periodically throughout most of my childhood and into my teenage and early 20s, even mid to late 20s. These big experiences of loss and pain, separation and disconnect. And in these experiences, what has happened, especially in those formative years, all felt too big, too much, too overwhelming for my body, for my nervous system to be able to hold or handle. And again, if you've been here or listened to me speak or share, or you've journeyed with me in any way, you'll have heard me speak about this piece that, trauma exists in not always the experience that happens, but how it was or was not held or met, connection that was either present or was lost in that traumatic experience, and how we was or was not supported through those times that felt too big, too much, too vast, too soon, all at once, too overwhelming. In my own personal life experience, the traumas that have happened within my family, the experiences that have happened, have been too big, too much, too fast, too soon for everyone, including the adults in the family system. So as a child, I very much did not feel that there was a space or a capacity to be held through my own unfoldings of that in my nervous system, because the adults in my family were also traversing through a very complex situations and their own feelings and experiences within that. So that left me as a small child, a small girl, feeling very big feelings in my body and not quite sure what to do with them. My strategy, or our strategy, there was a few that I created or adopted through these experiences, was to disassociate and disconnect from myself. I unconsciously, because of course I wasn't consciously aware of this at 3 or 7 or 12, but unconsciously, in the name of survival, I severed connection from myself, my body, and therefore my feelings and my emotions, to try to survive and to try to stay safe. Because those too big, too vast, too much, too overwhelming feelings felt like they were taking over, consuming me, impacting my nervous system in a way that my body just could not handle. So a very primitive process that happens is that we shut down. It's one of them. There's many different responses and coping mechanisms and strategies that we can adopt in these times and these experiences. My personal one was to disconnect from the relationship with my body, disassociate from my feelings, from my emotions. I went into a dysregulated nervous system of collapse, play dead. I was in an internal hibernation, if we want to call it that, for some time, for many, many years of my life, actually. This strategy that I adopted or created was an innocent strategy to keep me safe, to allow me to feel like I could move through these big experiences by not really being in them or being present in myself whilst in them. I would often experience these felt sensations of existing outside of my body and watching myself in a situation. This is a very fragmented and separated way of living or experiencing moment to moment life as it unfolds. Within that, I also felt incredibly disconnected from other people, fearful in connection in relationships, because I had not really laid a steady ground or foundation in the connection or relationship to myself. I had stepped out of relationship to my own feelings and emotions, and therefore was unable to really be in relationship to that with the external world. So as time and years go by, this was my strategy, and it worked for however long it worked for. And quite often these coping mechanisms and strategies that we create and adopt really work until they don't work. And through life unfolding for me, I arrived into quite a big awakening where my spiritual journey or my journey of embodiment and reconnecting to energy and myself began. But within this journey, I very cleverly, because that's what our patterns do, they're sneaky and they're clever, very cleverly, unconsciously transferred those patterns of disconnection and disembodiment into the early years of my yoga practice and my spiritual practice. And I began to exist in that strategy, in that coping mechanism, just in a new name, if we will, like a new area of life. But I still was not cultivating a deep and honest connection with myself, my feelings, and my body. I therefore wasn't living in the truth of my life. And throughout the years of many, many, many hours of trainings and coaching and therapy and somatic healing and shamanic initiations and Reiki training and yoga and philosophy, embodied movement, somatic attachment therapy. I mean, I've spent hours of my existence exploring in multifaceted ways myself. I began to slowly recognize, as we do on this journey of arriving back into ourselves, it isn't something that for me happened overnight. And it isn't something that happens for the women that I support in a click of their fingers, because that can equally be quite traumatizing on the nervous system. It's a slow titration back into relationship with the self. I began to, on my own journey of this, recognize that I had been living and existing from a space of almost like an alternate reality. And I kind of smile as I say that, because something my dad would often say to me is, you live on a different planet, you. And, you know, there was profound wisdom in that reflection for me, but that would be something that he would say maybe as a child or later on in life. And, you know, it's kind of one of those expressions that live in the family system, like Rebecca lives on a different planet. And it was true. I was existing in a completely different reality because I wasn't embodied in this one. I wasn't connected to myself in this one. I therefore wasn't connected to the reality of myself, my body, my feelings, my environment. And this began to reveal itself even in those early years in my spiritual journey and my awakening journey and my embodiment journey. These patterns of recognizing this disconnect that still existed within parts of myself and different parts of my life. There is a grounded reality to our human experience. And there is an embodied reality to the truth of the unfoldings that are happening within our life, our relationships, and our connection to ourselves. For me, and I can only really speak from myself and my experience of this, and possibly you are already resonating with a lot that I have shared, or you potentially may begin to resonate more deeply as I continue to explore this and share with you. I woke up to the realization that I was beginning to explore this world of embodiment and movement and therapy. And yet I had carried over this strategy of survival in my nervous system that had quite cleverly allowed me to weave into my healing modalities this expression of bypassing the reality of the truth of my felt sense. So what I mean by this is, and this is often a phrase that's maybe expressed or thrown around quite a lot, of spiritual bypassing or emotional bypassing. And I would just love to be really clear from my own point of view that often this can come with this felt sense of shame or doing something wrong, or that person must be bad, or just this energy that can come with it. But what we must recognize and hold with deep kindness and compassion is that an individual that is possibly in some kind of bypassing strategy does not feel safe enough to exist in the reality of themselves and their lives. I did not feel safe enough to exist in the reality of my life for a significant amount of time because it was too painful. It was too overwhelming. It was so much on my nervous system. And often that is where we bypass. We bypass through disconnection. We bypass through disassociation. We bypass through disembodiment. And then maybe we arrive on this spiritual journey and we continue to bypass by finding practices and modalities that keep us out of the body, in separation, not feeling our feelings or our emotions, not recognizing our core wounds, not understanding how those experiences that we had in our formative years have impacted us, how those energies have lived in our family system. We've possibly found teachers or modalities that support our strategy in a more conscious realm, which is an interesting way to express it, or just in a different area of existence. I often have spoken about this with many of the women that I have supported. I often share this story of when I was in my late teenage years, I definitely experienced a form of disordered eating and control within food. And when I kind of woke up into the, vegan raw juice, raw food scene, it was very easy for me to transfer this disordered eating pattern into fasting and juice cleansing, and it be given this new shiny image that was then socially acceptable. People were asking me a lot of questions in the earlier expression of this disordered eating. But as soon as it was wrapped up in this shiny bubble of like green juice and raw salad and fasting for as many hours or days as you possibly can, and it became a trend, nobody asked me or questioned me about, is this okay? Are you okay? It was more celebrated, but ultimately it was just a transference of a disordered eating pattern into another form of disordered eating. And I just share that because it's something that I share with a lot of my clients as a reflection or an ability to see how we sneakily transfer these patterns. I'd also been existing from a very disembodied, ungrounded, disassociated, unregulated space. I then found practices, especially earlier on in my path and my awakening, of like transcendence and leaving the body and not really being here and connecting to other realms or realities, which I do not question their existence, but recognize that that was very easy for me to do because I wasn't embodied in the truth of my being and I wasn't connected in relationship to myself and my feelings and my body. And therefore I was disembodied in a different reality and not embodied in connection to this reality, the reality of my life. But it is through this journey of unraveling and more coming into these layers of myself through somatic awareness, embodiment practices, therapeutic practices, therapy, that I have been able to recognize this patterning that has existed within myself and begin to unravel it on a much deeper level. The part of myself that has often reached out for modalities and practices or teachers or retreats or offerings that have supported me to stay out of connection with the truth of my life and therefore more deeply connected to an altered state of reality. That part of me has just been in what we might label a bypassing energy, but has been doing that from a place of like, this is the only place that feels safe. This is the only place that feels safe for me to be. So I'm going to continue to be in that place in a different area or different manifestation. But ultimately, I need to be safe. These are the choices I make. That's the ultimate strategy that I adopted. Maybe you can find or recognize in these moments your own coping mechanisms and strategies that you created and adopted in your life. And if you are sat with some rising feelings and emotions, I just welcome you to connect into yourself in some way that feels supportive and nourishing, and breathe. Slowly over time, through the journey of embodiment, and like I said, it does not happen overnight. It isn't a click of the fingers and poof, there we are. We've arrived fully back and it's all integrated. It's a slow journey of titration where we recognize the areas of our life that we're possibly bypassing, and we hold those parts of ourselves in the deepest compassion and deepest kindness that we can possibly find, because we are just doing the best we can with the feelings that we have always. And through this journey of unraveling and returning back into deeper connection to our body, and therefore cultivating a more steady, stable, and safe ground within, we are able to ground more into the truth of our existence and the reality of our life. We are able to soften into ourselves. We are able to feel our feelings, the feelings that once would have felt too big, too much, too vast, too overwhelming. A slow and gentle titration back into the self, part by part, piece by piece. And this is the true essence of embodiment, somatic awareness, somatic attunement, emotional awareness. It's to come back into relationship with the multifaceted version aspects of you. And within this, we become more connected to the reality of ourselves, our lives, and our existence. We are most truly connected to our environment, ourself, others, and within our relationships when we are connected to the reality of life. And that is for us to be present in the moment with what is. This is the journey that I support and guide so many women on. This journey of returning, so that they can become more available for themselves, their life, their relationships, their work, their family, friends, children, their mission, their purpose, their vision, everything they want to create in their reality. By coming back into relationship with the self, we become embodied in the truth of ourselves. And therefore, we become connected to the reality of our existence and our life. So I know that this has been a really deep share. And I would love to just extend, as always, if this has touched you or moved you in some way, please do connect with me. You can find me on Instagram, which is at Rebecca_Wilson_. You can also connect with me on my website and drop me an email. The link for that will be below in the show notes. If you know that this would touch the heart of another woman in your world, I welcome you to share this with her. Share it far and wide. My mission and purpose in the realm of my work is to support women to live a fuller, richer, more embodied life where they are connected to the reality of their existence, themselves, and they are more deeply embodied in their truth, radiance, and power. I have some limited spaces available for women to join me on an individual mentorship. If you've recognized some aspects or parts of yourself in this podcast and you're feeling that calling to take a journey back into deeper connection with you, I am here to support you and guide you. The details for the Awakening Woman individual mentorship are in the show notes. I'm sending love, kindness, and gentleness to all parts of you. Have a beautiful day. Thank you for joining me on this journey today. If you loved this musing and sharing, I would love for you to share this episode far and wide. You can arrive into all of my offerings at rebecca-wilson.com. Links to dive deeper with me are in the episode notes. Remember, my love, you are here to be the fullest, most potent, powerful, embodied version of you. I am here to guide you into that. Hey, love. I'm dropping in here to welcome you to join us in our online community membership, The Village. I created this space for women to gather, to return to themselves, to deepen the connection and the relationship with self, whilst held in a community of like-minded women walking the journey and the path of their own awakening.